I think that's the reason why so many bands get taken advantage of and lose all their monies, because they're not thinking about.
You immediately, if you're not careful, can sign your life away, not because you're stupid, but because you just don't simply know what you're doing.
CC DeVille was once handpicked to replace Slash and was the mastermind behind the riffs that helped launch Poison to the top of the Billboard charts. But on one infamous night at the 1991 MTV Video Music Awards, everything unraveled in minutes. He played the wrong song, dropped his guitar jack live on air, got into a backstage fistfight, and was kicked out of the band that same night. Success rarely comes without a price. It brought drugs, alcohol, ego, and nights soaked in chaos, hallucinations, and solitude. Once a rising star, CC became an outsider in the very world he helped shape. But that wasn't the end of his story. So who is CC DeVille? A wild musician lost in the excess of fame? A casualty of the spotlight? Or just a kid from Brooklyn chasing a dream too big for Hollywood's unforgiving landscape? His story is one of downfall and redemption, a winding path where bright stage lights never fully hid the shadows. In the end, CC DeVille was someone who lost everything, but never gave up trying to get it back. Born Bruce Anthony Johannes on May 14, 1962, in Brooklyn, New York, CC came from a working-class Jewish family. His father worked in service, his mother in retail. They did what they could to provide stability, despite living in a neighborhood filled with honking traffic, the smell of gasoline, and arguments echoing through thin apartment walls. Bruce's childhood wasn't peaceful. He described himself as a strange, solitary kid, often lost in his thoughts. While other kids played outside, Bruce stayed indoors, immersed in the radio and stacks of vinyl records from Kiss, the Rolling Stones, Lou Reed, and David Bowie, icons who sparked his inner rebellion. When he was about 6, his parents separated without conflict or noise, just a quiet split that left a deep void in his heart. He once said, "I learned to scream through the guitar because nobody at home ever really heard me." That first guitar, a holiday gift from his mother, became his closest companion and his only escape from the loneliness. Bruce began playing at age 5. With no teacher or formal training, he relied solely on passion and determination. He practiced until his fingers bled, taught himself from vinyl inserts, and copied the moves of every musician he saw on TV. Music became his salvation. The stage, his only refuge. He wasn't academically gifted, but he was sharp in his own way, more fascinated by how songs worked than by solving math problems. After high school, he enrolled in music at New York University, but the structured environment couldn't contain his creative spirit. He dropped out after a year, a move that disappointed his family but felt right to him. To follow his calling, he left Brooklyn behind, along with the name Bruce Johannes. With a few bucks and a worn-out guitar, he moved to Los Angeles, a city full of promise and peril. There, Bruce was reborn as CC DeVille, not a lost boy anymore, but a fire looking for a stage to ignite. Arriving in LA in the early 1980s, CC carried nothing but a beat-up guitar, some rough demos, and an unshakable belief in his destiny. LA was then the epicenter of rock, vibrant but cutthroat. Every corner, every club was a battleground, filled with musicians desperate for their shot. CC bounced from one band to the next, nameless and contractless, with no clear path. He played with groups like Screaming Mimes and later joined St. James, a modest glam rock outfit. But no matter where he went, he brought wild energy and a rebellious spark. Even at tiny gigs on the Sunset Strip, people might forget the music, but they always remembered DeVille's explosive guitar playing, loud, flashy, and unpredictable. Beneath the wild exterior was a sense of purpose. CC wasn't trying to be the next Steve Vai or Yngwie Malmsteen. He didn't chase technical mastery. He had something different, raw presence, style, and a relentless drive to stand out. He thrived on personality, turning the guitar into more than just an instrument. It became part of him, a storytelling tool, and a weapon of performance. In a music scene filled with technically skilled but forgettable players, CC DeVille made the deliberate choice to be unforgettable. His big break came in 1985 when Poison, a rising band looking to replace guitarist Matt Smith, held auditions in Los Angeles. One of the hopefuls was Slash, who would later become iconic with Guns N' Roses. But his gritty, blues-driven style didn't match Poison's glam rock image, full of makeup, hairspray, and theatrical flair. Then CeCe walked in and delivered not only a wild audition but also played an original riff that would become the intro to Talk Dirty to Me, a track that would define Poison's early success. Bret Michaels recalled the moment, saying, "The moment CeCe hit that riff, I knew we were hearing something different, raw, messy, but alive." With that, CeCe was in. He went from a struggling guitarist playing dive bars to a vital member of a band on the rise. And he didn't just bring talent, he brought wild energy, contradictions, and a lifestyle that would eventually ignite conflict within the band. By joining Poison in 1985, CeCe DeVille stepped into the height of the glam metal era, a time when everything was dialed up to the extreme. He was more than just the lead guitarist, he was the chaotic spark in a group that needed to stand out amid countless glam acts. His presence became the defining edge that separated Poison from the crowd. Their 1986 debut, Look What the Cat Dragged In, became their breakout moment. Despite being made on a tight budget and with low expectations, the album featured the Unforgettables' Talk Dirty to Me, written by CeCe. It quickly became not just Poison's signature song but a glam metal anthem. He also helped write I Want Action and I Won't Forget You, songs with simple yet magnetic hooks that resonated with young fans. With spiked hair, leather outfits, and a flaming BC-rich guitar, CeCe embodied the glam rock lifestyle. He wasn't just a player, he was a spectacle. As Poison gained momentum, they soared into mainstream success with their 1988 follow-up album, Open Up and Say is selling over 5 million copies. CeCe's flashy guitar work stood out on tracks like Nothing But a Good Time, Fallen Angel, and the hit ballad Every Rose Has Its Thorn. While he wasn't the lyricist, his emotional solos gave the songs their depth, turning radio-friendly ballads into emotional landmarks for a generation. The success continued with their third album, Flesh and Blood, 1990, which showed a more mature side of Poison. Despite growing friction within the band, CeCe remained essential to shaping their sound, contributing to hits like Unskinny Bop, Life Goes On, and Something to Believe In. He didn't rely on flashy solos, his power came from knowing how to strike the perfect note at the perfect moment. It was surprising restraint from a man known for pushing every limit. On stage, CeCe DeVille was Poison's chaotic force. He climbed amps, spun around, aimed his guitar at the crowd like a weapon, and played with his teeth. Every performance was a rebellion. Rock wasn't just music, it was an attitude. His stage presence was unmatched. He was Poison, raw, beautiful, and out of control. But while the lights burned bright, trouble was building behind the scenes. CeCe's unpredictable behavior grew worse. Studio sessions were delayed as he vanished for hours. Fights with Bret Michaels erupted over everything from set lists to who represented the band's image. The reckless lifestyle that once made him magnetic became a burden. Yet despite the chaos, CeCe DeVille helped create Poison's legendary sound and image. The band's first 3 albums, with him at the center, sold over 15 million copies in the US. They stood shoulder to shoulder with the titans of glam metal like Motley Crue, Def Leppard, and Bon Jovi. But just like any wild ride, the crash was inevitable. And for CeCe DeVille, the end didn't come quietly. It all happened in one night, broadcast live to millions, in a way no one could have predicted. It was the peak of a long simmering conflict and the beginning of a downfall. By the early 1990s, the spotlight that had once launched Poison into rock stardom had begun to scorch the very people it had once celebrated. Although the chart still showed success, behind closed doors, an invisible battle was intensifying daily. At the heart of it stood CeCe DeVille. The rift between DeVille and lead singer Bret Michaels grew until it was beyond repair. Their issues went deeper than creative differences. One wanted to hold on to the band's wild, untamed spirit, while the other pushed for evolution, a more refined hard rock sound. Their clashes extended to the smallest things: stage time, sound levels, even studio access. With alcohol and cocaine fueling both egos, minor disagreements often exploded into major fights. Michaels later admitted in Nothing But a Good Time, "CeCe was high. I was drunk. He hit me. I hit him back. We fought because his guitar was so loud I couldn't hear myself sing. It was a chaotic time. Everyone was exhausted, and no one was sober enough to stop the unraveling. Everything boiled over during the 1991 Flesh and Blood tour. A backstage brawl broke out between DeVille and Michaels at a show in New Orleans, forcing the band to cancel upcoming performances. Rumors of Poison's breakup spread quickly, and many believed that if things were about to explode, DeVille would be the spark. Then it did explode, on live television. At the 1991 MTV Video Music Awards, one of the biggest music events in America, Poison hit the stage in their trademark glam gear to perform their new single, Unskinny Bop. But from the first note, something was wrong. DeVille started playing the wrong song, Talk Dirty to Me, one of their older hits. It wasn't just a slip-up, it was a public embarrassment, undermining the band's image and promotional efforts. Things got worse when DeVille's guitar jack came loose mid-performance, cutting the sound completely. The set collapsed. Host Arsenio Hall had to step in and reintroduce the band, something unheard of on the show. Backstage, another fight broke out between DeVille and Michaels. It could have turned bloody if security hadn't stepped in. There was no official announcement. That night, DeVille was fired from Poison. The tension didn't end there. Months later, during a live episode of Pirate Radio Saturday Night, Michaels was giving an interview when DeVille suddenly called in, yelling and confronting him on air about things Michaels had said in the press. The Los Angeles Times documented the exchange. DeVille accused Michaels of singling him out in USA Today. Michaels fired back, saying he wasn't talking about drugs, he was talking about someone who could keep it together. DeVille, by his own admission, was no longer in control. The explosive call wasn't officially aired, but recordings quickly circulated across the music world, marking the collapse of one of rock's most infamous partnerships. After that, DeVille disappeared from Poison. The band moved forward with new guitarist Richie Kotzen, while DeVille dove into his solo project, Samantha 7, trying to stay relevant. The divide between him and the band, especially Michaels, seemed permanent. As always in rock, time and music would decide if this was the true end, or just the start of something new. Collapse. Renewal. Reunion. After that fateful night at the VMAs, the night Poison fell apart in front of millions, DeVille left the band in silence. He carried with him the wreckage of his career, tainted by addiction, chaos, and violence. Rock history sometimes redeems its rebels, but at that time, DeVille wasn't seen as a misunderstood artist. He was seen as a saboteur. And in the world of rock and roll, few things are harsher than the spotlight turning away from you. In the years that followed, faded into the background. In 2000, DeVille launched a solo band called Samantha 7 and released a single album. While it wasn't a complete flop, it fell far short of the success he had once achieved with Poison. During his rare interviews at the time, DeVille tried to maintain a positive front, but it was clear that behind his usual sarcasm lay a weary soul grappling with loneliness and confusion. By the mid-1990s, the grunge movement had swept away the last remnants of glam metal, silencing many of the flamboyant, makeup-wearing bands. Then something unexpected happened. Poison, long thought to be part of the past, announced a reunion. The first person they contacted was DeVille. By that point, DeVille had accomplished what few believed he could: he got sober. Quietly and persistently, he began to reclaim his clarity through therapy, honest self-reflection, and eventually a heartfelt call from drummer Ricky Rockett. There were no flashing lights or egos involved, just a simple, sincere question: are you okay? In 1996, Poison officially reunited with DeVille for their Greatest Hits tour. It wasn't a grand comeback, it was more of a test of forgiveness, friendship, and resilience. When DeVille stepped back on stage for the first time in years, holding his old guitar with cautious eyes, the crowd's roar welcomed him back. This time, he didn't miss a beat. But recovery rarely follows a straight path. In 2000, new conflict arose when DeVille wanted Samantha 7 to open for Poison's tour. Bret Michaels refused, insisting that if it was a Poison show, it had to be all Poison. Hurt, DeVille abruptly left the band without a word. Michaels later recounted, "I drove him back. We laughed, hugged, said see you in a couple weeks. Then I never heard from him again." 2 weeks later, DeVille returned, not to apologize, but to state a simple truth: I can play for 18 people with my band, or for 18,000 with Poison. Both he and the band knew what that meant. No matter how rocky the road had been, DeVille was an essential part of Poison. Their reunion had evolved from rebellion to reconciliation. They stopped trying to change each other and instead found a way to coexist. Now sober and more grounded, DeVille approached music with a calmness that was new to him. He was no longer the reckless force he once was, but the guardian of a legacy. The fire that once consumed him was now carefully managed. Since then, DeVille has remained a consistent member of Poison, taking part in major tours, compilation albums, and reunion performances that reignited the glam metal era. But this time, audiences didn't just see a rock star. They saw someone who had endured, who had changed. They saw a survivor, a man who learned to control the fire instead of letting it consume him. In his personal life, DeVille had once embodied the chaos of rock stardom, non-stop parties, fleeting romances, and scandals he could barely recall. But behind that rebellious front was someone yearning for real connection, something he rarely found in his early career. After overcoming addiction and returning to Poison in the 1990s, DeVille gradually retreated from the spotlight. He embraced a quieter, healthier life, not just out of exhaustion, but because something new had entered his world: family. In 2007, he and his longtime partner Shannon Malone welcomed their son, Valentino. It marked a profound turning point. Not a chart-topping single or a packed arena, but the birth of his child, an event that changed him forever. In later interviews, DeVille shared, "Becoming a father is the only thing that made me want to stop, listen, and grow up." He left behind the wild Hollywood scene for a peaceful coastal home in California. The party lifestyle gave way to school drop-offs, family dinners, and playing guitar purely for the joy of it. Shannon, who has largely stayed out of the public eye, was a steady presence throughout his struggles and recovery. More than a partner, she was his anchor, helping him stay grounded when things could have easily fallen apart again. After starting a family, CeCe DeVille largely stepped away from the romantic scandals that once surrounded him, an unexpected shift for a rock star whose earlier years were filled with controversy. In a VH1 interview, he reflected, "I've lived crazy enough to know that stability isn't boring, it's a luxury." Although he never legally married Shannon Malone, their home was complete in every sense. It became a place where he could just be himself, not the performer, not the artist, just a man, a partner, and a father who had survived chaos and chosen to protect what was left of his true self. In a music scene marked by early deaths, heartbreak, and chaos, DeVille's decision to slow down and live gently may be his most radical act yet. This time, his rebellion isn't about noise or fame, it's about staying true to who he really is. Now in his 60s, CeCe DeVille may no longer jump across stages in glittering leather, but he hasn't vanished. Instead, he's transformed, quieter, wiser, and more grounded than ever. He lives in California with Shannon and their son Valentino, trading the bright stage lights for the calm rhythm of daily life. Even though his step back from large-scale touring, DeVille has stayed close to music in 2024 and 2025. Poison had planned a big reunion tour in 2025 with the original lineup, including DeVille, but it was postponed when frontman Bret Michaels took time off to focus on managing his diabetes. The band has promised to come back in 2026 to celebrate the 40th anniversary of their breakthrough album Look What the Cat Dragged In, with DeVille playing a central role. Offstage, he remains active, taking part in local events, performing at charity shows, and encouraging Valentino's growing passion for guitar and performing. On social media, DeVille shares glimpses of his everyday life and connects with fans in a way that feels more personal than ever, reclaiming a sense of connection he once lost. Though he's not known for technical precision, CeCe DeVille is one of glam metal's most iconic figures. His riffs, from Talk Dirty to Me to Unskinny Bop, did more than define Poison's sound. They helped shape an entire era of music linked to MTV, Big Hair, and Wild Nights. His raw, instinctive playing broke traditional rules and proved that feeling and personality could outshine flawless technique. DeVille turned rebellion into an art form on stage, making each show a full-on experience. But his real legacy isn't about awards or record sales, it's about endurance. From getting fired for playing the wrong song live on TV to becoming a sober, devoted family man, his path is one few of his peers survived intact. Even now, when a Poison riff plays, people don't just remember the band, they remember CC DeVille, not perfect, but unforgettable. He symbolizes an era that burned brightly and never apologized for it. As he steps into a quieter phase of life, he carries with him more than just the memory of glam metal's golden days. He carries a story of resilience, redemption, and growth. CC DeVille's life reminds us that even after things fall apart on the biggest stage, you can rebuild if you're willing to face yourself. He didn't need perfection to matter. Instead, he became a role model for living authentically, for daring to change, and for proving that survival can be the greatest victory of all. He will always be a vital part of glam metal's legacy, a distinct face in rock history, and a beacon for anyone who thought they'd gone too far to turn back. What are your thoughts on CC DeVille's powerful journey? Which part of his story has stayed with you the most?